Canada signed it back in 1998, and the country, on behalf of us, promised to cut greenhouse gases. Except under the Liberals who agreed to this whole deal, emissions actually went up 24%. So in come the Conservatives who said, Kyoto, forget Kyoto. We've got a quote-unquote made in Canada plan, and the big highlight here, the Clean Air Act. So what would this Clean Air Act do? Well, for one, it would start regulating smog levels by 2010 and cut greenhouse gases in half by 2050. But here's the problem. Environmentalists say the plan sucks, and all three opposition parties plan to vote against it.
The planet has a fever. If your child has a fever, you go to the doctor. It may be a sign that something's wrong. We've gone to the scientific community, and they've said, yes, the planet has a fever. It's in trouble. We have to turn the thermostat down by reducing the global warming pollution. We have a full-scale planetary emergency on our hands. All future generations depend upon us deciding that we're not going to be the selfish, self-destructive generation, but instead the next greatest generation.
Al Gore testified there before Congress this week about the environment. He called it the greatest challenge in the history of mankind. The bill that you are co-sponsoring there says that we should go back to 1990 levels of emissions by the year 2020.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not going to get the job done. If this is the greatest challenge in the history of mankind, it reminds me of the way the Bush people talk about Iraq and the war on terror as World War III, and then don't ask people to sacrifice. If this is really the greatest challenge in the history of mankind, shouldn't we do more than go back to the 1990 levels by 2020?
The Prime Minister's Clean Air Act is dead in the water.
Oh, and Jack Layton wasn't done there either. This week, the NDP leader tabled a private member's bill. It called for more aggressive targets, set them every 5 years, and ultimately cut greenhouse gases by 80%, cut them below 1990 levels, and do it by 2050. Oh, and Layton also threatened a non-confidence vote to bring the government down. That got him a meeting with the PM.
I'm not really convinced that the Prime Minister understands the urgency of the climate change crisis.
Maybe not, but Stephen Harper does understand political survival, and he's agreed to send the Clean Air Act to a Commons committee for a review and a possible rewrite.
The problem is that the Congress is significantly controlled by big money. You have the big oil companies, the coal companies, you have people, automobile industries, who make huge campaign contributions to members of the Congress. And transforming the economy, taking on coal, taking on oil. ExxonMobil was the most profitable corporation in the history of the world. They and their friends have enormous power over the legislative process. To take these guys on and radically change the energy system of America ain't so easy.
The thing that impresses me in terms of the way in which the Greens have taken out firstly Shell, BP, and other oil companies, and of course Enron. Don't forget Enron was one of the great supporters of global warming. And the thing that I find extraordinary about this debate is the sheer bloody-mindedness, the desperation that is now manifest on the part of the anthropogenists, as I call them, who are convinced, despite all the evidence, that anthropogenic carbon dioxide is the main driver of climate, as opposed to those people who find that the evidence is not there, has not been there, and who object mightily to the fact that the IPCC will commit fraud in order to try and persuade people that its claims about CO2 and temperature are right.
Some scientists say the warming may be caused by changes in the sun, or ocean currents, or changes in cloud cover, or other things we don't understand.
Trying to understand the causes of climate change is akin to putting together an extraordinarily complex jigsaw puzzle in which we are still missing many key pieces.
Scientists can never be certain. That's one of our weaknesses, as you well know.
I have to speak out and say that the science we have is still incomplete. And the science we're being told by the IPCC is really incorrect science.
The fact is that they showed Al Gore's movie, a highly political movie, in a science class, and when students asked to hear an alternative view, the professor, the dean, said bluntly, no, we're not having that alternative view.
Well,
so,
where is the credible movie of equal note on the other side of Al Gore's movie? What would that be?
There's plenty. I don't want to do your
name one.
Your
name
research.
one?
The Great Global Warming Swindle. It's produced by someone who's actually on the intergovernment panel on climate change. I'm surprised you don't know this, Alan.
Looking at the flaws, looking at the mistakes he made, how would we be judged as journalists if we produced a film with so many obvious mistakes at the beginning?
I think it's imperfect, but I also think a lot of the stuff coming from the other side is imperfect, but we rarely see its imperfections revealed. So I think there is a bias in the media's enthusiasm for putting certain different parts of this under the microscope.
Wondering whether you saw this UK documentary. I want to just bring up a couple of the things that are presented in that documentary. That you know that there are still skeptics. I know that you have to deal with skeptics at this point. And let me just...
It's a hoax. A total hoax. Total hoax. It's an outrageous lie.
Every time you address the Holocaust, you don't bring somebody in that says it didn't happen. And we're at that stage now. We have Holocaust deniers, we have climate change deniers. And to be honest, I don't think there's a great deal of difference.
You know, on this very program, we have had a running list of experts, climatologists, meteorologists, scientists that repeatedly say that this is a bogus film with fake and false science that is predicated on false assumptions here. This is nothing short of indoctrination. Isn't that what this is about? I want to go a little bit into more detail here because there was an email exchange with the Young America's Foundation and the assistant dean at the college. And the dean comes to the conclusion that the debate basically is over on this issue.
The debate's over. The science is agreed upon.
The debate is over, and the science is in.
No, the debate is over.
Okay. Because, I mean, the debate is over.
Climate scientists need there to be a problem in order to get funding.
I would just question who funded the documentary and what their agenda is. I mean, I would ask that question, really.